Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to the Business Utility Subcommittee. Today is Tuesday, March the 8th. It is 12 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Mr. Clerk, can you take the roll, please?
Representative Alexander. Present. Burkhart. Clemens. Freeman. Hale. Here. Holsclaw. Johnson. Marsh. Here. Thompson. Here. Vaughn. Vital. Here. Zachary. Here. Chairman Boyd.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Members, before we get started today, do we have any personal orders? Speaker Marsh, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want us all to welcome Jackson Knotts. Jackson, please stand. He's the son of Mike Knotts, who's shadowing Mike today. He's a senior at Franklin High School, an honor student, and varsity letters in football, basketball, and baseball. So learn something from your dad if you can. Welcome.
Welcome, Mr. Knotts. Members, do we have any other personal orders? If not, we'll go ahead and get started. We do have a few housekeeping items today. And item number 1, House Bill 1211, has been rolled to the hill of the calendar. Item number 5, that's House Bill 591, has been taken off of notice. Item number 2, and that's House Bill 1291, has been rolled 1 week. Item number 3, House Bill 753, has been rolled 1 week. Item number 7, House Bill 1182, has been rolled 1 week. And item 12, House Bill 921, has been rolled 1 week. We got a few bills left here. So members, let's go ahead and get started. That brings us to item number 4. That is House Bill 750 by Representative Powell. I do not see him, so we will roll that 2 spaces. Next up, we're on item number 6. That's House Bill 988 by Representative Beck. Representative Beck, you are recognized, and it does look like you have an amendment. Do we have a motion and a second? We have a motion and a second, and then do we have a motion and a second on the amendment? We have a motion, we have a second on the amendment. Representative Beck, you were recognized on the amendment. Does it make the bill, or is it just clarify?
The amendment makes the bill, yes, sir.
Amendment makes the bill. Let's go ahead and put that on the bill. So members, we're voting to put amendment number 4861 on House Bill 988. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. Representative Beck, your bill is amended, and you are recognized on the bill.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee, I hope y'all will remember the 3 generations of ladies that came to speak to us 2 weeks ago. An amazing family, and they've formed the group Awake in order to help seniors, and especially seniors in their housing. I've met with all the stakeholders, and we've come up with a bill that everyone can agree on. The changes that we have made is, number 1, that the tenant has to be current. If they're not current in their obligations and stay current through the 90-day period, then they forfeit all rights or protections under this bill. They also, it's narrowed down to aging facilities or elderly facilities as recognized by the federal government, and which is a very narrow slice. If you recall, this senior home in my district, the property was sold. They gave them all 30 days. They'd been living there for years, and 30 days was just too short. So with this bill, if you qualify, and if it's a facility that is for the aged, then you'll get a 90-day term from the point that you're given notice. If it's a new development, and what we mean by new development, if the property is going to be scraped and a new development built, which was the case for my seniors, or if it's a renovation above and beyond that everybody has to move out, and they're going to bring it back as market rent. So that's the terminology. And with that, I stand ready to answer questions, Mr. Chairman.
Sponsor, we appreciate the explanation. Members, do we have any questions for the sponsor on his bill? Chairman Zachary, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, a much better bill than last go around. I think some of the parameters we placed in here do make it something that we can seriously look at supporting. Is there still, I remember reading, and I was trying to look through the amendment, is there still a minimum age requirement or a minimum age? I think when it's 62, is that still listed within the legislation?
Representative Beck, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that the guidelines are 55, according to the feds.
Okay.
Chairman Zachary.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And then also, can you go back to new property development? Is that, I was looking through, is that actually defined in the amendment? I didn't see any kind of definition for new property development.
Representative Beck.
It's not, but that's the reason they wanted me to express on the record what that new property development is. And it's number one, a scrape all the way down and rebuild, or number two, everyone has to vacate and the property is going to be renovated and brought back at market rate.
Chairman Zachary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could we get it, would you be willing to do an amendment just to define that?
Absolutely.
Between now and full? Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I want it clear.
Thank you.
Members, do we have any other questions for the sponsor? And sponsor, I appreciate your amendment. I think it fixed a lot of the concerns that we had, and just want to reiterate that we're going to move it out today. I believe it's up to this committee, but we would like to see an amendment to clarify that on the new property development.
Be happy to,
before
Mr.
commerce.
Chairman.
All right. Members, we're voting to send House Bill 988 as amended to full commerce. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. Congratulations, sir. Your bill's on its way to full commerce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee.
Let's see, members, that brings us to item number 8, and that's House Bill 165 by Representative Butler. Motion. We have a motion, we have a second, and Representative Butler, you have filed that amendment that we were talking about last week, and what is that drafting code that you're showing?
Thank you. It's 4478.
That is what I'm showing too. Members, do we have a motion and a second on that amendment? We have a motion, we have a second, and Representative Butler, remind me, does that make the bill, or is that just something clarifying?
Thank you, Chairman. It just tweaks a few of the words in there and clarifies some things.
Okay. Members, let's get that amendment on the bill. We're voting to put Amendment 4478 on House Bill 165. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. We're back on the bill as amended. Representative Butler, you are recognized.
So, thank you, Chairman. This bill really provides some protection not only to individuals that have service animals, but it provides protection to business owners to be able to hold these individuals that claim to have service animals. And I'm sure many of you have seen folks at Walmart and various business locations, hotels and so forth, that are bringing animals in there that pretty sure they're not service animals. And so under federal ADA law, we are very limited as a business owner on what you can and can't ask that individual about that dog. One, you can ask them, what service does that dog provide and how are they providing it? And so it was asked last week, and there he is right there, that asked the question I'm going to address, what is a service animal? And under ADA statutes, federal ADA statutes, a service animal is defined as a dog. It's not an alligator. It's not all these other crazy things that somebody may come up with. And there are no actual ADA protections for anything other than a dog. Now, there is one exception I will include just for the sake of information. There actually is an exception under the ADA requirements for a miniature horse. Don't know that I've ever seen a miniature horse service animal, but there is an exception under the ADA rules with some very specific guidelines. So that doesn't, this legislation doesn't really address that. But what this does is, if it's found out that an individual has a dog that is determined to not be a true service animal and or causes damage in a hotel or a place of business, then the individual can be held accountable for that as a Class C misdemeanor, and also that individual will be held liable for whatever damages that dog causes. So and I think I mentioned previously that my original intent was to obtain a license for these individuals, even if there was no cost to that individual, but that violates ADA rules federally, so we're not able to go down that road. So this provides some protection to the business owner and provides some protection to folks that have true service animals. So with that, I'll renew my motion and answer any questions.
Thank you, Representative Butler, for that explanation. Members, you've heard the explanation of the bill. Do we have any questions for the sponsor? If not, members, we are voting to send House Bill 165 as amended to full commerce. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. Sir, we'll see you next week in full commerce.
Thank you, committee.
That brings us back to item number 4, members. That's House Bill 750 by Representative Powell. We have a motion, we have a second, and Representative Powell, your amendment is already on the bill because we adopted it last week, and so I believe, do you have a second amendment as well?
I do. I have a
Okay.
second amendment to address the committee's concerns.
Okay, what drafting code is that one?
I've got Amendment 4987.
That's what I'm showing too. We have a motion, we have a second. Members, let's go ahead and put that on the bill. We're voting to put Amendment 4987 on House Bill 750. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. Sir, we're back on the bill with the amendment, and you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I explained the bill last week. With the amendment, addressed some of the concerns, and I appreciate the committee bringing these up so we can make sure that this bill met those concerns. With that amendment, it says that single-owner condos are exempt. Also, any condo whose board is appointed by or controlled by the developer is excluded. So we tried to make sure that we met those concerns and really focused on those true HOAs that are, the residents are truly living there and not, the different condos that have a single owner, that it's an investment.
Okay. Chairman Zachary, do you have something?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Powell, thank you for you and all the stakeholders and the engagement. I think I was on the phone about 6:30 on Friday night working through this. And so it alleviated and addressed the concerns that I had related to small developers and the HOAs and the small common property that they had. And so your intent is worthy, and so I'll be supporting the bill. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Representative Powell, you recognize?
Thank you. I appreciate that. And clearly, we've got a lot of good developers that are building and continue to develop along those lines. We want to make sure that they continue to be able to do so and promote commerce in the state. So thanks for bringing that to my attention. I'm glad we can work this bill out.
Members, do we have any other questions for the sponsor? And I just want to echo what Chairman Zachary said. And I know in our area, a lot of folks are starting the process of building a few apartments and realizing that it makes as much sense just to build them into townhomes so you could sell them individually. But initially, they do retain them and use them like apartments. And so your bill clarified that, or your amendment did. So appreciate that. Members, if there's nothing else, we are voting to send House Bill 750 to full commerce. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. Bill moves to full commerce. And members, that brings us to item number 9, and that's House Joint Resolution 119 by Representative Fritz. We have a motion. We have a second. Representative Fritz, you are recognized on your resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. And first, I want to offer my sincere apologies. I committed the ultimate rookie mistake by just missing this last week, so I'll offer you my sincere apologies for that. All my fault. No excuses. What I bring to you today, I think, is a very important resolution for us and the time that we are today. It's House Joint Resolution 119. This is a resolution calling for the state of Tennessee to begin development on an energy strategy and a plan that will not only provide for growing energy demands of our citizens and businesses, but will also position the state of Tennessee to continue to be a leader in energy production rather than a follower. I'm asking for your consideration on this bill. It is consistent with work of you, Mr. Chairman, what you're doing with some of your energy-related matters, and with conversations as of late in developing this state policy. Why is this important? Thermal energy is required for us to keep the lights on. We make that steam in our plants and our factories around this state to keep electricity generated primarily with 3 sources today, uranium, coal, and gas. We are the cradle of nuclear power. for not only our nation, but for the world. My district is part of that cradle, and it is important for us to leverage those expertises that we have in this state, in all of our power production, but especially in that nuclear sector as we move forward, because that's what we're going to pass on to our children and our grandchildren to support a robust economy, life safety measures, and quality of life in the great state of Tennessee. So I'll offer you some things to consider as we talk through this. As of August 2022, the United States Energy Information Administration, or EIA, suggests that Tennessee uses 3 times more energy, all energy sources, not just electricity, than it produces. That in and of itself should, I think, get us to the point of considering our own energy policy. The rolling blackouts, brownouts that we had over the Christmas period, I believe became leading indicators for just how important our energy, specifically our electricity, is to maintaining our safety and health and our quality of life. That electricity is required not only to keep the lights on, but to keep our natural gas flowing and our water and our sewage system flowing. It is ultimately important to us and to our economic growth. Concerning in that is how close we operate in our margins and our ability to generate electricity, our capacity to do such. Currently, the USTVA, of which we are blessed to have in our state because we have really good electrical rates, those good men and women that work in the TVA and provide services as control room operators or electricians or criticality safety officers work diligently every day to make sure that we have our power on. But we find ourselves in a place where in the state of Tennessee, within our boundaries, we have 20,000 megawatts of generating capacity in the state. TVA as a whole has about 33,000 megawatts of generating capacity. We are bumping that capacity limit on a regular basis. You go back to something that I mentioned about using 3 times more energy than we produce. We are a net importer of electricity in the state of Tennessee. Let that soak in for just a minute. A net importer of electricity. So with our river system and our expertise in nuclear energy, we've allowed ourselves to get in a position where we may be in an economic disadvantage in being in that position. We have to buy electricity from other power producers in order to meet our demands in the state of Tennessee. Between 2010 and 2020, we had a 9% increase in our population in the state of Tennessee. Considering today's birth rates, that's a phenomenal growth. And it's nothing probably that any of us would have projected a few years ago. In 2021, it's estimated we had another 57,000 people move into Tennessee from other states. 17,000 of those in the Nashville metro area, I'm told, and 10,000 in the Knoxville metro area. Then in 2022, according to the National Association of Realtors, we had another 82,000 people move into the state of Tennessee. These are phenomenal increases in our population, and each one of those individuals brings a demand on our electrical system and our electrical grid. Again, pressing us toward having an energy policy in Tennessee that serves Tennesseans. We have an average household usage of 1,564 kilowatt hours annual or per month on an annual average. And assuming that a household of 4, those people that moved in, those 82,000 in 2022, could have increased a demand of 375,000 megawatts annually. When you do the load factor calculation of that, you could reach numbers as high as 1 megawatt on a daily basis. These are leading indicators that we must act as a state and not rely on what are often failed policies at the federal government in determining how we generate our electricity. In spite of these numbers, we are this year planning to shut down one of the coal steam generators, Bull Run plant, that produces 685 megawatts of electricity. That is, according to my math, 4.3% of the total capacity that we have in this state. We continue to face these challenges. So I offer to you that with our expertise and what we have in this state, we are again the cradle of harnessing the uranium atom to generate heat and to generate energy. I suggest to you that it's time that we move on this, and that documentation of such in a House Joint Resolution, most of what I've spoken to you about briefly this morning, revolves around electricity. Moving forward, that is tremendously important. Aside from those folks that have moved into our great state, we do have a move toward electric vehicles. That is going to further increase that demand. If we want to avoid brownouts, rolling brownouts consistently, as some of our friends on the West Coast have, it's going to be important for us to have a strategy moving forward that plans ahead and exercises the expertise that we have. Our state, again, in my district, is equipped with the subject matter expertise and the resources to be able to manage our material programs so that we can provide nuclear power. I will be touring later this week ultra-safe nuclear. We have several private companies that are coming into the Oak Ridge area to produce TRISO-X fuel or another version of isotopically correct U-235 fuel sources to be able to produce energy. We have companies moving in that have plans to be able to implement a molten salt reactor into replacement for our coal-fired and natural gas-fired plants at some point in time. Kairos Energy from California is one of those such entities. They plan to take their test reactor to critical, reaching a continuous chain reaction, a nuclear chain reaction in 2026. That is extremely aggressive. And in conversations with their chief nuclear officer, their plan is to develop a plug and play, if you will, to be able to be that thermal input for making steam in Tennessee. So all these reasons and many more, I won't spend too much more of your time with that. I will ask for your support for this House Joint Resolution. It's important to not only us, but to our posterity, and I'll certainly take any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sponsor, for that explanation. Members, I already see a list forming here, so Chairman Vaughn, you are recognized.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you for preaching to the choir. The issue that I have is you're urging the state of Tennessee to create this policy, yet we do not control our own electricity supply. I know you spoke of the good men and women at TVA. Well, they are the ones who are coming up with the energy policy that our state is 100% dependent upon. So I'm interested in what agency, where would this policy originate from, who would carry it out, who would change the strategic vision to a tactical vision, given the fact that TVA constantly reminds us that we have zero authority over them, that they are a publicly private kind of federal sort of agency that lords over our electric power supply. So how do you resolve that fact with your statement? Like I said, you're preaching to the choir. I agree with you. The lack of capacity that we have, the margins that we're running at are very thin, and we saw that unfortunately fail the stress test. But how does this work in with the realities, the day-to-day realities of the fact that we are 100% dependent upon whatever kind of entity that TVA is today?
Representative Fritz, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that question. It is one that is very important. I think this is step one in that process. I think step one in that process is to this body to assert that we plan to develop this approach. And I would offer that it is first strategic. I do not think that we are ready at this point in time to go into tactical implementation of many of the things that we need to do. While we do have the skill sets, the subject matter expertise, not only in the nuclear industry, but also those provided by the USTVA and for those good men and women that work there, I think first is achieving that strategic objective of developing an assertion that we have a right to control our own destiny in how that we produce electricity. And I think that's going to be a process, sir. I think it is a great question, but I do think this is step one.
Chairman Vaughn.
Does me.
All right, I've got Representative Freeman up next.
Yes, I had to step out. Could you redo the middle part again?
Yes, sir.
I'm totally kidding. That was my question as well. So you've answered it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, do we have any other questions for the sponsor? If not, members, we're voting to send House Joint Resolution 119 to full commerce. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. Sir, your bill's on its way to full commerce.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Next up, item number 10, that's House Bill 796 by Speaker Johnson. We have a motion, we have a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have an amendment, drafting code 2558.
Speaker, we do not have an amendment. I
Uh-oh.
think it's been filed. Do you need to roll this a week? I think you do if the amendment's.
You do not have the amendment?
We do not have an amendment, Mr. Speaker.
Let's roll this week, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, House Bill 796 rolled 1 week. That brings us to item number 11. That is House Bill 154 by Speaker Marsh. Do we have a motion and a second? We have a motion, we have a second. Speaker Marsh, you are recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is a jobs bill. It promotes employee ownership in the state of Tennessee. This means keeping Tennessee jobs in Tennessee. And in my company in Shelbyville, about 14 years ago, we became an employee stock ownership company with all of our employees owning the company. And I highly recommend that we do this all across the state. It's been a tremendous asset for us. In the federal government, when you become an ESOP, there's a lot of tax savings. In fact, you don't pay any federal income tax if you're an ESOP. The way the federal government gets their taxes is when the employee retires, they pay the taxes back. They're withheld on the company side, but they're paid by the employee at the end game. So what we're trying to do here in Tennessee, more than 440,000 Tennessee small businesses are owned by people 55 and older. These firms employ more than 600,000 Tennesseans and bring in annual revenue in excess of $100 billion. It's important to keep these jobs in Tennessee. And what we mean by that, if I had sold my company 14 years ago to another company out of state, they would have probably told us, which I had this experience earlier, that they were going to keep everything the same. Nothing's going to change. All the jobs are going to stay in Tennessee. But within a year later, they were basically all gone. So when I had an opportunity to do it again, we decided we were not going to take that route. We've ended up doing an ESOP. We sold the entire company to our employees, our drivers, our mechanics, our salespeople, all own the company. And what that means is they all kept their jobs in Tennessee. The company did some tax savings because of it, and all of these employees will retire Tennesseans, and they'll pay sales tax and income tax after they retire. What we're trying to do in Tennessee, since we do not have an income tax, we're tying this to a credit on taxes for when you put together the company. There's a lot of expenses up front in legal and accounting. You'll get a tax credit up to $100,000 the first time you become an ESOP, and then we'll do some credits on business tax after that to keep the company going and keep the employees owners and to keep the employees living in the state of Tennessee. This bill strengthens local economies and keeps Tennessee jobs in Tennessee. This bill helps turn workers into owners. This bill is about economic development, preserving the Tennessee way of life. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Speaker Marsh, for that explanation. Representative Thompson, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually was in an ESOP with my company that I retired from. It was quite lucrative, and I was building up a big account when they dropped it after a few years. And I still have the money, but they stopped offering that. Do you feel this will help encourage more companies to adopt ESOPs for their employees?
Speaker Marsh, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do. I think that a lot of people want to do this. They don't know a lot about it. If we can encourage them by some tax credits to do it, I think they should do it and would do it, and their employees would reap the benefits. In fact, last week our number one driver retired after we'd been in the program for 14 years, and he cashed out $400,000 in money that he didn't put a nickel into the plant. And so what it does, it builds strength in your company. People believe in their company because they're owners. They don't want to leave. They want to cut their trucks off. They want to not run out of route. They want to take care of the equipment. So I think it's all kind of pluses for it. And I think that more people in Tennessee should look at this. I think this is a great program. And what we're doing is trying to make people aware of the program and give them a little incentive to get involved in it.
Representative Thompson, you got anything?
Yes, thank you very much. It's a good bill. I appreciate you bringing it.
Thank you.
Members, we have any other questions for the sponsor? And sponsor, I'll tell you, actually, I had a constituent reach out right before we came into session this year, and he said that they wanted to start one of these, and his accountant told him Tennessee wasn't that friendly toward him. And so I'm very excited about your bill and look forward to reporting that to him. So, members, if there's no further questions, then we are voting to send House Bill 154 to full commerce. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes have it. Sir, your bill is on its way to full commerce. And that brings us to item number 13. That's House Bill 799 by Chairman Zachary. We have a motion, we have a second, and Chairman Zachary, I do show that you have an amendment.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. It's 5018.
That is what I'm showing as well. Can I get a motion second on the amendment? We have a motion, we have a second on the amendment. Chairman Zachary, you're recognized on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members in committee. This does make the bill. What we're doing here, members, the amendment you have before you is brought by the Department of Commerce and Insurance and supported by the home builders. Architects are neutral. We're looking to standardize the residential energy code. Right now, it's really across the board, and so you'll see in the language of the bill itself, the amendment, we're simply deleting some of the sections of obsolete code, and then we're ensuring that the fire marshal sets the standard for the energy code. And some people have asked about, is that related to safety? It is not. It is all about energy efficiency in a residence. We're talking about residential, so it has nothing to do with safety. And so the fire marshal sets the standard. He will use the 2018 IECC code. And then this requires all the locals to stay within 7 years of that code as they set their parameters for the energy codes. But the locals have the discretion to be able to set the parameters for their codes, but they cannot be more stringent than the 2018 IECC code. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you for that explanation, Chairman. Before we take questions, Representative Freeman, I do have you on there. Let's go ahead and get the amendment on the bill. And then, all right. Members, we're voting to put Amendment 5018 on House Bill 799. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes have it. We're on the bill as amended. And Representative Freeman, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, sponsor. So I guess I'm just trying to understand. So do any municipalities have an energy code adopted that's past 2018, newer than 2018 currently?
Chairman Zachary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, there have been circumstances that have driven the cost up to home builders by roughly $7,500. And so there have been circumstances of that in Davidson and Shelby and some of our larger counties. And so what this is doing is just setting a ceiling to where they have flexibility within the energy codes, but they can't go above the 2018 IECC standard.
Representative Freeman.
Thank you. So this is a troubling bill for me for many reasons. One, it clearly preemption coming after a municipality's ability to drive code, which is one of the most local decisions that I think that a city and municipality can have. Across our state, we have three very distinct climate ranges. The climate in your neck of the woods is completely different than it is in mine, than it is in Chairman Vaughn's. And to have one energy code that meets all of those conditions is going to be a little difficult. We just heard a bill about the energy crunch that we're having across the state, asking about, we're bucking up against capacity. And in a municipality that is pushing 800,000 people, those municipalities should have the ability to make their buildings and their homes more energy efficient. I appreciate that it costs an additional $7,500, but a lot of these costs that we see get pushed down to the consumers, and the consumers get to decide whether or not they want to buy these homes. If they don't, let's let the market decide. I just have a big problem with again, a preemption bill of this level that rolls back much of the hard work that at least I know we've done here in Nashville and other places.
Chairman Zachary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so again, we're setting a standard. It does give the locals flexibility, but we're setting a ceiling that they can't go above. And so that way it standardizes across the state, but is still a fairly high standard because against the 2018 IECC code. And so all the locals and the municipalities have to stay within 7 years of that code.
Representative Freeman.
Yeah. Members, I just want to make sure everybody's aware of what's happening here. These groups came to the municipalities and tried to have these rolled back locally. They were ineffective. So what they do is they come up to the state and they have a blanket bill that rolls it back across the state. And this, again, sort of preemption is what I think is wrong with a lot of what we're doing up here. So I appreciate what you're doing and the intent, but I think this is misguided.
Chairman Zachary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just let me make clear that this was brought to me by constituents who are home builders who had concerns about being able to sell affordable homes to the people across the state. And as we continue to drive energy codes well above what is required, it increased the prices of those homes. And so this was brought to me by constituents who are home builders. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Clemens, you're recognized. All right, members. Representative Burkhart.
Thank you. As a home builder and a developer, and I appreciate the bill very much because one of our biggest problems in Tennessee is building affordable housing, and this absolutely speaks to that. It speaks nothing in there if you want to over-insulate. If you have a private home and you want to, if you're a home builder and you want to meet the 2020 whatever code, you can absolutely do it. All this is required in the to be a local code that can't exceed the 18 code. So if you want to go up to a 22 code and build your homes that way, you absolutely have that privilege as a home builder. And I absolutely appreciate the bill. For every $1,000 that a home price is increased, you take about 2,500 families out of buying a home in Tennessee, and that is a large number. And I would appreciate this committee passing this bill. Thank you,
Chairman Zachary.
Thank you,
members. Do we have any other questions for the sponsor of the bill? If not, we're voting to send House Bill 799 as amended to full commerce. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes have it. Let your noes be recorded. The bill's on its way to full commerce. Members, that brings us back to item number 1. That is my bill, so I'm going to hand this off to Chairman Vaughn.
Thank you. We are now on House Bill 1211 by Chairman Boyd. Chairman Boyd, I see there's an amendment that's traveling with your bill, 4699.
Motion.
A motion second on the amendment. Let's get it attached. I think it does rewrite the bill, does it not?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
All righty, and we are going to vote to attach amendment code 4699 to House Bill 1211. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Hearing none. The amendment is on the bill, so go ahead and talk to us about House Bill 1211, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, House Bill 1211, it basically rewrites the Department of ECD's Broadband Accessibility Grant Program. It aligns it with the BEAD requirements, the Broadband Equity Access Deployment money that's coming down the pike. There's nearly $1 billion that's going to be coming to Tennessee that will be flowing out to our internet providers through ECD. And so I'm going to try to hit the high points here, Mr. Chairman. And so it changes the standard of unserved location to align with what the BEAD requirements are, which is internet speeds less than 100 megabyte download, 20 megabyte upload. I understand that was a concern for some members of the committee, but that is simply what the BEAD requirement is. And so it aligns it with that, with an emphasis on getting it out to people that are unserved or have less than 25 megabyte download. It gives ECD the authority to administer the grant program. It puts an emphasis on last mile projects, which actually gets the broadband out there to the consumer. There's still a little bit in there for middle mile, but the emphasis is going to be last mile. The language provides direction to ECD that the cost of a proposed project will be a factor. So if to make sure that our ECD dollars, these federal dollars, go further, the cost of the project will be taken into consideration. And so this makes us better stewards of state dollars and federal dollars. And it also affirms that ECD should give greater weight to providers that offer a higher match. The language also ensures that all grant funds go to provide broadband that don't have access first. So this does put an emphasis on the unserved rather than the underserved. And I know sometimes that after I just got done telling you guys that anything under 100 megabyte download can be served, there still is an emphasis on those that don't have any broadband at all. And the speeds that will be installed will at least be 100 megabyte download as well. It requires ECD to maintain a list of locations that don't have access. That list will be maintained, and it'll also be integrated into the maps that we've heard so much about the last couple of years. And it specifies that providers who receive grants will have to finish their projects within the allotted time, or there will be a 20% penalty. Mr. Chairman, I can take some questions if you have any.
Thank you, Chairman Boyd. I'm glad to see this bill coming, because for those who are not familiar with, well, everyone became familiar with broadband and its necessity during the COVID shutdown. Became a way to people maintain their livelihoods as well as their education. Yet, as a result of that, we've seen the need to show it a lot of love. And then on top of the love that we have shown it with funding, the federal government has increased the love to the point to where that industry, frankly, is now awash in money, in funding opportunities. And we want to make sure that those funding dollars go where they're needed and not building adverse competition into areas where we subsidize competitors for folks that have already made the investments, sometimes with grant dollars, sometimes without them. So I appreciate the fact that we're going to try to bring a little bit of guardrails to what could be the Wild West as far as how these grants are given. So thank you very much. I see Chairman Marsh. He had his hand up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'd just like for you to clarify or help me with this, because I understand it's about cost. We've got some cost factors in here. And I know that in the rural areas, it does cost a lot more to move out than it does in neighborhoods. So if I'm talking to ECD and I'm telling them, I'm going to take this money and serve 10 people, and then another company comes in and says, I'm going to take this money and serve 15 people, but my cost to serve the 10 is a lot more than it is for there. Is there going to be some kind of, in ECD, to look at this and study this and make sure that the cost and the benefit are working together, that we're not just giving all this funds to people that are serving more, because some of these places are hard to get to.
Chairman
Very hard
Boyd.
to get to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And that was, this has been thoroughly vetted, and it has been amended a couple of times, and almost every stakeholder group that you could imagine has been involved, and that is a concern. We recognize that rural Tennessee is where most of the unserved are right now. And so I want to clarify that the cost of the project is not pitting urban against rural. It's more or less if some different folks were applying for grants for an area, if someone can get that job done for less than the competing internet provider, then that will be taken into consideration. It seems like it would have already been taken into consideration, but this just simply emphasizes and clarifies that it won't be the only deciding factor, but it can be taken into consideration.
Chairman Marsh.
What if you have a grant serving an area, and one of them, we got two people bidding on it, and one of them says, I can serve this whole area for, like 10 million, and the other one says they can serve it for 8 million. I guess the 8 million is going to get the grant, more than likely.
Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. They would certainly be higher on the list for it, I would think. And so it's not the only factor, but it will be taken into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
All righty, and if I could see the hands one more time for the committee, I have Chairman Clemens, Chairman Zach, and I forgot, didn't see Representative Alexander. Okay, Chairman Zachary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sponsor, based on my comments last week, this is a significant step forward, without a doubt. But I've talked to Commissioner McWhorter about this, and will continue to do so. It's more of, I guess, a cautionary tale for this committee and also for those of us who are on finance, because, and I discussed this with some of the stakeholders, but in the definition of unserved location, the first part's fantastic. Unserved locations means a location without any broadband service. That, let's be clear, that is an unserved location. But then it goes on to say, or with broadband service offering only a minimum speed of 100 megabits, 100 by 20. So we just need to be clear that the definition of unserved now includes the 100 and the 20 meg. So if an area gets 50 meg down and 5 meg up, that area would still be classified as unserved, which that would be by the industry, my industry standards of doing this, that would be an underserved area. So, Mr. Chairman, I just think we need to ensure that we are providing a high level of accountability to ECD and continue to have the conversations with Commissioner McWhorter, because I believe the intent of this is to make sure we're taking the resources that Chairman Vaughn talked about, the $1 billion plus, and finally fixing and addressing the issue. Chairman Hawk's not here, but last week when I made the comments I make, he told me I made the same speech in 2017. And so, members, again, a cautionary tale and words to make sure we come back and look at is that if we do not do this the right way and hold the department accountable, we will be sitting here 2 years from now addressing unserved and areas in your district, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Faison, Chairman Hawk, others who are still saying, well, I've still got this unserved population. And again, it's going to be the continued hamster wheel. So again, all that to be said, a huge step in the right direction, and the guardrails, as Chairman Vaughn said, are here, but we have to ensure accountability as we walk through this, or we will not address the issue.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm following up on my colleague from Shelby County's questions. I didn't exactly hear the answer to this question. So the more remote the area, the more expensive the project's going to be. Are we not dissuading these grants being allocated to these more remote areas that need some sort of access, that may not even have cell access to internet?
Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, this is not pitting rural against metro here. What we're saying is if a couple of different entities are applying for grant dollars for a certain geographic area or to serve a certain population, the price will be taken into consideration at which they can deliver the broadband. And so that's the way it should be. I mean, I would have thought this wouldn't have been necessary, but that's what the language is basically saying.
Chairman Clemens.
Thank you. Well, that still raises the concerns because your more remote areas, I'm not worried about metro versus rural. I'm worried about rural versus very remote. And, the more remote you are, the more expensive it's going to be to get it out there. And so I'm afraid this is going to have a detrimental impact on those more remote areas of Tennessee that are going to be the last to get coverage. So maybe I'm not understanding your explanation, but the minimum download and upload speeds, improving those is great. Are we not, I see in here we're prohibiting the department from awarding a grant if locations being served by at least one provider offering minimum download and upload speeds that are required. A little concern there in that we're limiting competition and the government's choosing winners and losers in this scenario. Is that a concern under this legislation? I mean, I kind of understand why you wouldn't want to double up in one area and use your funds elsewhere that's unserved, but I also have the concern about the government choosing winners and losers and limiting competitions. Can you speak to that?
Chairman Boyd.
There's a lot to unpack there, but I'll start off by saying that to get to the really, really remote areas, you have to go through the remote areas first. And so we do have an in service in mind. I mean, we're trying to get it out there, but it's going to get, you're going to have to go through a more densely populated rural area before you get to the very remote area. And that's just geographically, it's necessary. And so the intention of this is to serve all Tennesseans. And I think this accomplishes that. But there is no doubt. I mean, I'm not going to argue that it's more expensive to serve a very sparsely populated area with a lot of miles with only a few customers out there. It is. There's no doubt about it. And will the people that are a little bit closer to town that don't have it, will they be served first? Yeah, probably. But I think you have to get to those other folks. And I want to speak for a minute. I didn't get a chance to follow up on Chairman Zachary's comment, but ECD does have to report back to the General Assembly, to the committee, and I share the concern of the upload-download speed, and I have mentioned that several times. Of all the different stakeholder groups, no one was really that concerned with it, rather than I was probably the most concerned with it, and I was concerned because of the speech that you gave, and I know what the will of this committee is. But the reality is the federal government is giving us $1 billion, and it says their definition is 100 download. I mean, that's not ours. That's theirs. And so it would make sense that our language would mirror that to a certain extent. But their emphasis, and there's a little caveat in here, that if anything conflicts with the language in the federal bill, then the BEAD's language will supersede ours. And theirs basically says, I'm paraphrasing here, the BEAD's language says that that you can serve anyone that is doesn't have 100 megabytes, but there is an emphasis and a priority on those that don't have 25 megabyte. And I don't know if I answered all your stuff. There was a lot to unpack there, Representative Clemens.
Chairman Clemens,
Thank you,
you
Mr. Chairman.
got anything else, or are we?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
my concern, again, I understand why you don't want to double spend in specific areas, but my concern was if you'd speak to us limiting competition with the code and the government choosing winners and losers in areas where we generally like to facilitate competition and capitalism in that respect. So if you could just speak to that.
Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if there's already someone providing what's qualifies as high-speed internet in an area, we're not going to spend tax dollars to go in there and overbuild. I think that's really what that speaks to.
Thank you, and I'm saving the best for last. I can tell you that there's no member of the General Assembly that is more passionate about remote internet access than Representative Alexander. So, Representative, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. I know that I've beat you to death with this subject, so thank you. Thank you, committee, for listening to me, and thank you, sponsor and Chairman. My question is there going to be is there in this bill some requirement that says the grants are going to be issued to companies that will actually do the work, not 5 years down the road, but actually get the job done?
Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, if they don't get it done by the time prescribed, there's a 20% penalty that they will have to pay.
Representative.
Like that.
All right, thank you. I'll say this, and Speaker Marsh, I'm going to come back to you after I pontificate a bit. This is a difficult situation that our generation has not endured yet. We've seen a way that our lives have changed that is embraced by most, but is not necessarily embraced by all. And so what's really adds another layer of complexity to this whole broadband accessibility has to do with the take rate in some of these areas. We may spend millions of dollars to build a system that nobody wants to pay the $100 a month to get access to the stream itself. And so for these, and that's why we're coming in, it's difficult to project a business model for. And our state, due to the remoteness of a lot of its locations, had taken this on as a state initiative, and now the feds have come in over the top of us. And It's interesting, particularly as I was sitting here, I wanted to listen to how Chairman Boyd answered Representative Clemens' question about the picking and winners and losers. It seems as if, as a result of the necessity, we have already engaged in that to some point, as we have issued these grants to some companies, but to not all companies. Now that it has to do with who's in what areas and other things like that, but this is a complex problem that I constantly check myself against, asking myself, is this a good thing or is it too much of a good thing? Is it appropriate? Is it inappropriate? And so we're not going to solve that with one single piece of legislation at all. And we're not going to stop the federal government from giving us $1 billion to bring access to broadband to Tennessee. But this bill is a good start on us saying we're still responsible to delivering what it is the mission is, but we still need to do it in a practical way and just not go hog wild crazy while we're issuing grants to folks and people still wind up without service. And so I wish ECD Commissioner McWhorter the best in his efforts to manage this, but it's a really tough situation that I see when you give all the factors involved to what does free market play, what does competition play, what is appropriate investment by government into private businesses. So this is a good start, and have we got a tea time? Hold on, Chair. Speaker Marsh. That's just me pontificating. There wasn't a question lying in there anywhere.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have just one more comment. I think this is a great bill. Sounds like to me it is. I think we certainly need to make sure we're fair with all the people that are trying to get the grants. We need to make sure that we're cost-saving, cost-effective. And I just would like to know who, in your opinion, who's going to monitor ECD and make sure this is happening?
Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I mean, we have an interest in it as a legislature, and we've put language in there that they do have to report back. And so I think this is a lot of money coming down the pike, and I would imagine that everyone from both chambers, the leadership are going to be watching it. I know certainly I am with this committee, and I know Chairman Vaughn, and there's a lot of different stakeholder groups out there that keep an eye on it. So I think that we'll hold them very accountable. And I do want to emphasize to everybody, just to remind you, there is a grant process that already exists through ECD. BEADS is given a lot of money, and they've got their own set of requirements. What this bill is, and Chairman Vaughn mentioned it early, this is just guardrails. We're putting a legislative touch on what otherwise would be an administrative process. And so, some things we can't control. Some things are established by the federal government through the BEADS program, but we do need to put some guardrails on there, and we should. And so I just want to remind everyone, as y'all ask questions about the process, I'm not inventing the process. This is just a set of guardrails that we're superimposing over them. So, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Chairman Zachary, hopefully, is going to take us home.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just a final comment to piggyback on what Speaker Marsh said. I think it's critically important for the Finance Committee to play a role in this as ECD presents before us and we ask those questions. Representative Freeman, I don't think anybody else, I think, is Representative Hawk on this? He's on this committee, right? He's just not in here. Is he not on this committee? Okay. So I think it's just critically important that the Finance Committee plays a role on that, because once it leaves this committee, we're the only other committee that will have a purview of the budget presentation. So I think those are questions that we need to make sure we ask, and that oversight's important. Thank you, Chairman.
All righty. Seeing no other hands, nobody else wanting to preach, and our tea time has yet to be booked, we are going to move forward with House Bill 1211. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those who, by the way, this is as it is amended. So all those opposed, no. Hearing none, we're going to go to commerce with this thing. Your bill moves on, Chairman Boyd.
Mr. Chairman,
I strike that. I said it went to finance. It goes to commerce. Full.
Members, that concludes our business. This meeting is adjourned.